You're tuned in to Super Talk 1270 and Free for All Friday. Compelling local talk at 11 o'clock. Free for All Friday features groups and organizations that are plugged into progress here in Central North Dakota. Our rotating panel includes members of the Bismarck Downtowners, the Bismarck Mandan Home Builders Association, Pride of Dakota, and United Tribes Technical College. You're invited to call in and join the discussion. It's Free for All Friday on Super Talk 1270.
Good morning and thanks for tuning in. This is Dot Frank with the Bismarck Mandan Home Builders Association on another Free for All Friday with Super Talk 1270. Thank you for listening. Excited today. We have a very special guest, one who actually joined us last evening at a VIP social we hosted for our PAC contributors, along with a membership event celebrating the culmination of the Fall Parade of Homes. I have joining me in studio this morning, Dr. Elliot Eisenberg, president of Graphs and Laughs, an economist who goes by the moniker Bowtie Economist for obvious reasons, right, Elliot?
I wear a bow tie, that's right.
He wears a bow tie. One of the things that we're really excited to have Elliot here in town for is to talk to us about not only the national economy, but to dial in locally to see how we might be a little bit different than states across the U.S. And what we need to anticipate in the months ahead. Because I know there's been kind of a slowdown, but not a stop.
Certainly
which is
not.
exciting for us.
Certainly
So
not.
Elliot will put those things into perspective. He certainly did last night, and it wasn't your typical economist talk. There was a lot of fun and jest. I feel sorry for the gentleman who got up, I think, probably to use the restroom and came back. He was very much a center of attention for a while there with the audience. Thanks to you, Elliot. But I'd like to welcome you to the show, and if you would share with listeners a little bit about your background, who you are, and what brought you here to North Dakota.
Great to be here. Thanks so much for the invitation, Dot. So I've been working in the housing industry on and off, or mostly on, for about 20 years now. Got my PhD in it in late 90s or mid 90s and worked for the home builders for about 13 years, as a staff economist in DC. And for the last 3 years, been running my company called Graphs and Laughs, where I try and teach people that economics is both fun, can be educational and fun. Economics doesn't have to be dry and miserable. Therefore,
the dismal science.
Correct. That's why the bow tie, that's why the humor, that's why the laughing and so on. You can make it fun. It can be enjoyable. It's not root canal, really.
So, how do you make it fun? Because on the surface, economics can be a little intimidating. It's a lot of numbers and statistics and historical data, and you could get buried in it. How do you make it fun?
I think it's a combination of things, bringing a lot of passion to what you do. So in my case, I talk a little too fast and I jump up around on stage, and occasionally I climb on some furniture and I heckle people in the audience. That's one. So people paying attention, they're laughing. It's good. Humor helps. And also it's really important to tell a story. People don't gravitate towards a graph or a chart. That's not going to release self-evident, obvious clues and so on. You have to explain it and put it in a way that people can remember. People like stories. They don't like data and numbers and graphs and charts. Otherwise, storybooks would be full of graphs, data, and charts. But children don't go to bed with that happy.
Yes. So you came to town last night. You participated in our social and then were the keynote presenter for our dinner. What did you want to leave the crowd with last night? What is the one message that you wanted to leave with them? And then we'll go through and talk about your PowerPoint, specifically some of the statistics you shared. But really, what was your intent and purpose last night?
I think the most important thing to go forward thinking about is the overall national economy is just not growing really fast. We have been in this sluggish growth since the end of the recession, which ended in the middle of 2009. And it's been, 1 year it's that tsunami in Japan that kills us, and 1 year it's the government closure or the fear of not paying our bills and the debt ceiling problem, which may rear its ugly head again early next month. And every year there's something that's derailing us from going faster. But the problem is, no, this really is about as fast as we can go, because GDP, labor growth just isn't that hot, and labor productivity growth isn't very good. And you put these two things together, which are the basis of all GDP growth, and they're weak due to demography or lack of corporate investment and so on, in plant and equipment and government spending on research and R&D. This is what we've got, because this is about as fast as we can go. We'd like to grow faster, but it's not going to happen in the next couple of years for sure.
So is a lot of it about reframing our expectations of a recovery and reframing our expectations on the level of performance we should be at as a nation economically? I mean, are we just too ambitious at this point?
No, I don't think we are. I think we're not doing enough to help ourselves. There's some demographic things, baby busts that occurred 20 years ago manifest themselves now in GDP numbers. Labor productivity growth can improve. That's something economists don't really understand, why it dips and doodles, and it dips and doodles a lot from decade to decade. So we might be on the brink of really good labor productivity growth, but given that corporate spending isn't so hot, that's not a great thing. But the good things we are doing, we just passed, they closed the deal on the Trans-Pacific Partnership. That's a very important thing. In 10 years' time, which is a long time, after everything's been implemented and corporations are adjusting to the new regime and so on, it'll boost our GDP by 60, 70, 80 billion bucks a year, which is a meaningful amount of money. If we could get some tax reform and get immigration reform, those things together could boost our GDP another 0.4 of a point. That's 0.8 of a point. We're only growing at 2% now. That's almost a 50% increase. So there are things we can do. We're not purely victims, and we should push Congress to do the right thing.
So in addition to advocating for those types of changes, which are onerous, and we have influence as citizens across the country
we do.
through our elected officials, if you step back though and look at what you can do independently to help stimulate the economy, where can individuals step up to plate? I know it was really fun to hear you last night talk about shoe purchases and trips abroad and all of our imported vehicles. What can we do as average citizens today or start doing to help influence our economy?
The best thing, maybe the only thing, I mean, we could be financially savvy and not borrow more than we can afford, obviously, but those are, I think, self-evident. The other one is probably buy American stuff. I mean, not that I'm against buying imported goods. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I like Italian gorgonzola cheese or whatever it is. But go on a vacation in the States. Go to Hawaii. Go to Florida. Go to California. Go pheasant hunting here in town tomorrow, for example. But buy American cars if you can. I mean, I'm not saying, you want to buy a Lamborghini. Yeah, sure, it's hard to buy an American replacement. But if the prices are equal, the quality is just as good, buy American. It'll probably help the economy. It's not as clear as it seems because often American-made cars are made somewhere else. Buying a Ford doesn't guarantee it was made in the U.S., just as buying a BMW doesn't guarantee it was made in Germany with a defeat device. I'm joking.
So there are steps that we can take to help influence the economy. One thing that you talked about too, and it's evident when we're driving around, and I'm sure you noticed on our way to the studio here this morning, are help wanted signs everywhere within North Dakota's borders, and particularly western North Dakota. When it comes to employment and the unemployment rate right now being so low,
second lowest state in the country behind Nebraska.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? And what can we do or what do we need to do when it comes from an employment perspective to really continue to make North Dakota attractive?
I mean, sure, it's a good thing. I mean, no one wants to have high levels of unemployment. That means families are breaking up and kids are suffering and poverty's worse. No, you're getting high wage growth here. This is unambiguously a good thing. But there's something called too much of a good thing, too. And having unemployment rates below 3.5% is unusual. There are only 2 or 3 states in that boat. It's not a permanent situation. You've got to attract more people here. And I think you've got to do it by making infrastructure more desirable out west. People don't want to stay there. They work there, but they don't want to stay there because there's no restaurants to go to. The roads aren't good. The schools aren't elegant, and so on. People end up want to live here or in Fargo or Minot because there's better infrastructure. That's a big issue. And as I joked earlier with you, I think the state's best solution is to go and find a bunch of beauty queens and move them here, and the guys will all come flocking. And if women are from North Dakota, the guys will stay, and that's what you need to do. You've got to convince people that they want to remain here after whatever the short-term job that they've got ends for whatever reason it is.
And that's really interesting to bring up, the attractive women and using that as an appeal. We'll talk to Department of Commerce and see if that'll fly for the next campaign. But I think what's really interesting is you talk about bringing people here and getting them to stay here because we've seen kind of an exodus of oil field employees who have come because their economies were so poor and now they're returning home because their economies are improving.
Right.
One thing that we have, faced consistently as a state prior to oil is retention of people that are from North Dakota, perhaps students, are a prime example. They continue to be an example. It's getting a little bit better because those employment opportunities are increasing, and so are the wages available to them. But is there any kind of tried and true method to kind of grow our own and attract besides the beauty queens? Mm-hmm. We'll talk about that more specifically when we get back. You're listening to Super Talk 1270's Free for All Friday with the Bismarck Mandan Home Builders Association. Welcome back. This is Dot Frank with the Bismarck Mandan Home Builders Association. Thank you for sticking with us. And if you're just joining, welcome. I'm sitting in studio with a very special guest, Dr. Elliot Eisenberg, an economist who's in town sharing some statistics with the Home Builders Association. He joined us last night for our fall awards mixer, combined economics, education, and a ton of humor, and a way to get people thinking about the economy, thinking about numbers and financing in a way that's fun. Yes, our Bowtie Economist. And I wish, we had the power of video right now, and we will when we link to this in social media so they could see that you truly are the Bowtie Economist with the bow tie and all. Well, welcome. And
thank you so much.
Thank you for staying with us. Before we went on break, we were talking about attracting people to our state as well as retaining them, and how the state has always struggled with retaining young people. We have the high school students that graduate and they get out of Dodge, and we have a hard time bringing them back. Now they're starting to come back because, one, they might realize the grass isn't greener on the other side.
Right.
Two, we've got job availability. And three, the jobs are paying decent wages right now. However, we still need more people. The governor just hosted its economic summit in Fargo. We had one employer alone that was stated in today's Tribune that's looking for over 600 employees. That's just one employer in one city. So the need is there. Another thing that I'd like to talk about in today's Tribune, NDSU wants to increase its enrollment. President wants to see 18,000 students in the next 5 years. We talked about current openings last month, over 17,000.
Right.
This 18,000 could fill that void.
It could. And it's a great way to try and do it. Because if you bring kids in, kids will come from other states, right? They're going to come from Minnesota. They're going to come from Wisconsin. They'll come from South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, whatever, nearby states. If some of them come from out of town, out of state, they'll stay here. Who knows knows how many. But it's a great way to bring people in and spend 4 years in the great state here, North Dakota, and say, ooh, I like it here. I love it. It's different. It's funky. It's cool. It's got a good vibe, whatever. Great. That's one great thing you can do. The other thing is build on the advantages you already have. You've got oil. You have energy. So try and do some research. Try and get some research going on things to do with energy, with fracking. Let's not start thinking about solar panels here. You can do that too, but use the natural advantages and comparative advantages that you've already got. The problem you face here is that the two neighboring cities, if you will, not neighboring, it's the wrong word, but Minneapolis on the east and Denver on the west are both doing really, really well. Denver's wages are high, unemployment is super low, and Minneapolis is also not quite as hot as Denver, but close. And Fargo's also an important one. If you keep building on Fargo, that's also a big plus. So take your big cities, help them get bigger. Raising the size of the college is a brilliant idea. It's relatively inexpensive. And if it keeps 1,000 or 2,000 kids a year here more, wow, that's an immense win.
Absolutely. And, it's interesting how, a lot of what you tie in, we can associate with other industries. So oil isn't new, but this new renaissance when it comes to oil exploration and extraction is something that I didn't experience yet. The first boom and bust was when I wasn't even born. So now it's a new experience for a lot of North Dakotans. But one thing that has been consistent across the state is our strength in agriculture. And I think one thing that we have done exceptionally well that maybe we replicate from an energy perspective is that research. We have wonderful agricultural research in our state. And, it's funny to hear you say that maybe that's a direction we should take is how do we utilize those resources like energy,
right,
which has played an important role, but it hasn't had, I guess, the attractiveness that it has in years past. We've had coal and other resources, but with oil, that could be a real segue for us.
And it may not be a ton of jobs, but they'll be high paying, they'll be interesting, there'll be some academic jobs at the university, perhaps we can expand that area, some petroleum engineering type of stuff. Those are types of skill sets that people want to get. They pay well. And there's all these other sectors that feed into it and work together with it. So and ag is an excellent example. Can we grow certain types of sugar beets or corn or whatever it is that's resistant temperature, climate, all types of hail problems or bugs or so on and so forth? Right. That's exactly how to think about it.
So we have, the a ton of jobs, 17,000 plus.
Advertise outside your state
Are
borders.
you seeing that? You're outside of the state. Are you seeing North Dakota communicated?
No, the only articles you hear about North Dakota are ones where things are going to hell in a handbasket because oil prices have collapsed and all the exploration and production is not taking place in the Bakken, and there's lots of campers going vacant, and people are mailing back the keys and running out of state, and they're buying one-way tickets out of here. It was only when I began to do the research for the presentation that I gave yesterday that I really realized things here not only weren't as bad as I thought, but they were pretty good. Yeah, there were some threats to the economy, sure, obviously, but it's generally a lot better than I thought.
So what do we need to be talking about to those people that aren't familiar with the realities of North Dakota right now? You know, you heard the sky is falling. That's what you're experiencing. And that's what I think the press really likes to pick up with.
Oh, it's exciting. It sells papers.
Absolutely. So, what is the story that we could tell to outsiders that is a real point of attraction for them? Because that's difficult for North Dakota to do, because for so long we've been kind of the state that, marched to the beat of its own band because we could. We have all the resources right here, and we were the best kept secret.
Right.
We got real popular quick because of money. And now with the money, not so popular, we're falling out of.
You got social media programs. There's got to be some full court press by the state here, the State Bureau of Economic Development or the Department of Labor, whatever it's called here, to say, hey, look, we have to put out ads in the appropriate places, whatever it is, to attract the right people to think about coming here, or tell them that we've got a story that there are ample jobs available and ready for people who are labor market able. If you can get up in the morning, get to work, pass a drug test, and so on and so forth, and have a brain, you've got a job here. That's still a very appealing thought in many parts of the country where unemployment is still elevated, and if people are having a hard time for a job, they'll come here.
So, and I was going to ask about that. As you shared statistics about the economy slowly improving, it is improving. Is that going to be one of the biggest challenges for the state of North Dakota? Is the other states becoming healthy again?
Sure it will be. I mean, but don't forget, your unemployment rate is much, much lower than most other states. Wyoming's having a tough time, and they've got coal issues there. The energy states in general are suffering, but you've got a much more diverse economy than many of these other states do. Certainly in the eastern half of the state, you can push. There's lots of things to push here. But yeah, you've got to advertise. If I don't know about it, if I'm not aware of this, and I'm someone who's paid to be aware of things, I'm relatively surprised and positively shocked by the data that I saw. That's telling me that you're not doing your story well. By contrast, in the last 4 or 5 years, there was a great story from North Dakota coming. You've got to push. I mean, I'm not joking. You almost want to have guys with sandwich boards in front of unemployment offices in neighboring states saying, don't apply for unemployment in Wyoming. Come get a job in North Dakota.
Yes. Yeah. So let's talk about the jobs. And, one of the hindrances to the jobs has been housing. You're an expert in housing and housing economics, worked, as you had mentioned, for the National Association of Home Builders, still very active with that association, and work with locals like ours across the country. What's housing role in the solution for filling vacancies right now?
Housing is very important because the price of housing determines very much who will come here, who can afford to come here, how many people can come here. In a super boom like you've recently had, rent prices, they're important, but they're not critically important because the guys are coming here making so much money, making $125,000 a year, an extra $1,000 a month for rent's not going to kill you. But once wages come down to normal, if housing prices are too high because there's not enough homes being built, it will discourage people from coming. They'll say, oh my gosh, I'm living in a relatively rural state, and I don't have the amenities I have in Minneapolis, and rent is at least as high as is in Minneapolis. Well, I'll go to Minneapolis. You have to offer them a comparative advantage and higher wages, lower rents, maybe both, or at least one. But having sky-high rent is not doing you any favors, and it discourages youngsters from coming here. The college grads are going to have a bit of a harder time too.
So, at what point do you at all have any influence on the pricing, or do you wait for, people to decide not to buy and not to rent, and then as an owner, you're forced to reduce them, or do you anticipate, is there ever a situation where you anticipate these things and as a result you start reducing your rent? If people are writing the check for $1,500 a month for a one-bedroom apartment,
that's great if you're a landlord.
It's going to be difficult for me as a landlord to all of a sudden say, this housing, I really should be charging $1,000 instead of $1,500.
No, it's not the landlord's job or the tenant's job. It's the job of the government to allow the builders to be able to build what they think the market needs. And to the extent that government gets in the way in terms of permits and zoning and regulations and building codes and so on, raising the price of housing or making it more difficult to build houses or longer to build houses, that reduces the supply of housing. And that's the only thing you can do. There's no magic solution. Builders are the only ones who can increase the stock of housing, and that affects the overall supply. As that goes up, all else equal, prices of houses and prices of rents fall. Other things are raising them, inflation and so on.
You are listening to Super Talk 1270's Free for All Friday. This is Dot Frank with the Bismarck Mandan Home Builders Association alongside Elliot Eisenberg, the Bowtie Economist. Stay with us. Exciting information from an economics perspective. We promise more fun when we return. Welcome back. You're listening to Super Talk 1270's Free for All Friday with Dot Frank and the Bismarck Mandan Home Builders Association. Again, thanks for hanging in there with us. It's a wonderful Friday morning. I'm sitting alongside, quite literally now, because we're going to share some statistics via the slides you prepared last night. Dr. Elliot Eisenberg, an economist with Graphs and Laughs. Graphs and Laughs, please tell the audience about the nice little email you sent out 5 days a week that educates all of us on the economy. Not only some real serious statistics, but some more lighthearted statistics along the way, which always make me smile.
Right. So I put out every day, 5 days a week, late at night, 70 words on economics or less, but never more. And there are no graphs, no ads, no charts, no links, and no photos. And you're free to share it with all your friends. Hopefully you give me attribution. But if you don't, the worst I'll do is take away your birthday. I promise. That's about it. But it's a way of giving back to the community, sharing information that I think is relevant. Yesterday I talked about the Trans-Pacific Partnership and how beneficial I thought it would be for the U.S. and so on. So please go to my website, econ70.com. There's a sign up tab there. Sign up and start enjoying it. And if you don't like it, while I'll be unhappy, you can unsubscribe every day.
Excellent. And I do encourage people to check it out. It's a great way to kind of get in tune, and it's wonderful conversation topics. I think what's so exciting is finding things, whether it's in the newspaper this morning that we can connect over, or perhaps it's your 70-word statement or less that, really gets me engaged in conversation with people. And you learn more than the 70 words. Yours is kind of like the starting block for conversation when it comes to the economy and just really fun, quirky things.
Thank you.
So we're going to continue on talking a little bit more specifically about what you shared with the Home Builders Association last night at our Fall Awards Mixer. You had a slide presentation, which was very informational. This is where the graphs came into play.
Sorry.
But the exciting part was how animated you were at interacting with those graphs, pointing to the highs and lows and the dips and dives and the plateaus. So let's go through some of the slides, and if you could share with the listeners, what it is that you talk specifically about. So this first slide that we're looking at, households are repairing their balance sheets. It sounds like a good thing to me.
It is a good thing, and this is what's really driving the economy right now is households. Households are feeling pretty good. Unemployment is continuing to decline. Job creation has been quite good. There are wage increases that aren't as fast as I'd like, 2% nationally. I'd prefer to see 3%. People aren't getting fired. So generally speaking, households are feeling pretty happy and spending levels are going up. And that's the sector that's driving the economy forward. We're not seeing much corporate investment. We're not seeing a lot of government spending. And we certainly aren't seeing exports do well. They're actually doing quite poorly because the dollar's gotten expensive and so on. But households really are the key fundamental driver of our economy right now.
And one thing that we talked about is, the investment that companies aren't or are making, which is nominal at best right now. And you talked a little bit last night about what drives that, and you talked about how consumers can impact it. Before break, we talked about buying American-made products because you had highlighted that while we are saving money and spending money as consumers, we're spending that money on services, and we need to start spending that money on products. Can you explain to the listeners why we need both?
We absolutely need both. Services are great. I mean, I like getting a haircut and I like having a massage or going to a hotel or going on vacation, but it's also important to buy cars and stuff like that. And what's going on is it's the manufacturing sector that drives generally real deep product innovation. There's also social media. Google's doing all kinds of stuff too, don't get me wrong, and cell phones are high tech is with towers and so on also. But lots of corporate investment goes on the manufacturing side. And it's critically important that these firms see profit potential down the road. They're only going to invest in plant and equipment if they see buyers buying whatever it is that they're selling. So to the extent that manufacturing is important, and it's critically important, even though it's only 10 or 11% of GDP, it's been in a bit of a funk of late. And that's part of the reason why labor productivity has not been as fast, not as high as I'd like it to be.
So it's all like we're kind of, dancing in this circle and no one's stepping into the middle to take action, whether it's the investment by the businesses or it's the buying by the consumers. Someone's got to start moving.
And hopefully as unemployment falls and workers get more scarce across the country, the wage increases that you experienced here over the last 6 or 7 years, it won't be nearly as dramatic because unemployment won't fall nearly as to 2.8 or whatever it is here. But if it falls from 5.1 to 4.5 or 4.6, that will hopefully lead to some upward pressure on wages. Households spend even more money than they do now, and that causes firms to start investing in plant and equipment to supply these overeager households with more stuff and things and services.
So, this all ties back to your main theme of the presentation, which is the economy is recovering slowly. None of this is happening immediately. It's going to take time.
Slowly. Everything's happening slowly. That's right.
So another thing that you talked about during your presentation is deleveraging of households. One thing we hear quite frequently, and we touched on students and how the North Dakota State University wants to start attracting as many as 18,000 over the next several years. Along with the students comes some student debt. Is that something that we need to be concerned about? We need to be a little concerned about it.
It's a little bit less significant here because schools here are state schools, so the tuition costs are lower, and the students coming from out of state, there's probably some levels of reciprocity with neighboring states. So these kids are not walking into a school with a list price of $60,000 or $65,000. So total debt levels here are lower than in other states, but the same rules still apply based on what we see elsewhere. All right, and what we find very interestingly in the research is that students that leave with higher debt levels have lower levels of default. And the key reason this is, so you walk out with $5,000 or $10,000 in debt, your likelihood of defaulting over the next 5 years is much higher than if you walk out with $35,000 in debt. It's not that the debt is good, it's that the debt signifies that you've graduated from your degree with a degree, which is critically important, and or you may well have a second degree, a master's in psychology or in engineering or in chemistry or economics. But the key thing is to finish college. If you do that, you get a bump up in salary. If you don't finish college, you get the debt, and you have no bump up in salary, and you've given up salary to go to college. So you end up with a world of hurt. So it's critically important not just to bring these 18,000 kids here, but try and get the kids to finish. That's also at least as important.
Absolutely. You've got some other really great statistics. Again, we're talking about industrial production, how it's inching up, but again, slow movement there.
Right.
Some of the other high points from the presentation that you want to share.
I think the key thing is traditional recoveries are V-shaped. They go down deep and quick, and you come out deep and quick. This one, we went down pretty quickly, very quickly, but the recovery has been achingly slowly. And things that should have taken 2 years have taken 6 or 7 to get consumer confidence back up, or small business confidence up, or trips to Las Vegas up, or restaurant meals going out, and so on and so forth. It's taken a lot longer to get where we should go.
So let's talk about North Dakota specifically. So you gave a picture, you painted a picture of the economy across the country, but then you narrowed in on North Dakota. And you really narrowed in on North Dakota to the point that you had nice little arrows pointing to the state statistics on the slides that you prepared. One of those slides that we're looking at right now is oil and the importance of oil. That's something that, we've felt the impact. I think we have probably felt the impact emotionally more than we have, see it pan out physically or realistically. What is oil's impact, from an economics perspective on our state, relative to some of the other states that we hear about and that we've recruited from? We've got Texans coming here, Oklahomans, Alabamans. Yeah. So where does North Dakota sit amongst the oil-producing states, and are we in a relatively good position when we take a look across those borders?
Virtue becomes vice. And the fact that you were a small state with a relatively large energy sector drove your economy very well. You had GDP growth, gross state product growth of 10%. These are unbelievable levels of economic growth. Well, as oil slows, because you're a small state with an oversized energy sector, the woes of the energy sector now leach into the rest of it. And I think the best way to look at it is this one slide you keyed in on, probably the most pessimistic slide that I showed. And it looked at the labor force, the size of the labor force in oil and gas industry as a percentage total payroll. And North Dakota is one of only 3 states in the country that's at roughly 5%. Alaska's at 4%, you're at 5%, and Wyoming's at about 5.5%. So these are the 3 states that are most likely to be adversely affected. While Texas has a much bigger oil and gas industry, the state's also, 20 or 30 times bigger, so it doesn't matter so much. And their percentage as oil and gas has declined as a percent of the labor force. So this is the potential canary in the mine shaft, if you will. If oil stays low for a long time, this could begin to leach into the overall economy.
And we'll talk about that leaching and whether or not we think that's going to happen when we get back. Right now, we're taking a break. You're listening to Super Talk 1270's Free for All Friday with the Bismarck Mandan Home Builders Association. Welcome back. This is Dot Frank with the Bismarck Mandan Home Builders Association on a Free for All Friday. It's free, Jim. Radio is free. Not only free in your car and on the radio in your home, but free over the internet. In fact, that's how I like to listen, is over the internet. I could take it with me anywhere and everywhere. So it's like I'm, a home away from home when I've got Super Talk 1270 in my pocket. We are talking about housing and housing economics. It's my privilege to be seated right next to Dr. Elliot Eisenberg, an economist who is an expert on housing. He is funny and provides wonderful factual information via a 70-word or less blog, 5 days a week. You really make a lot of us appear smart.
I do my best. That's what people tell me. Elliot, they'll say, your blog is wonderful. I don't understand all the stuff, but I sound really good at cocktail parties. Absolutely.
And anybody can grab that blog, get the email. Where do they need to go to get smart on economics?
2 ways. One, go to econ70.com. So it's 6 digits, in six characters. econ 7 and 0.com. Go there, blog. Or you can text the word bowtie with 6 letters, no hyphen, BOWTIE, to the number 22828, just 5 digits. That's it. It says text me, 22828, and the word bowtie, you'll be signed up.
Excellent. So we'll all be smarter as a result of this morning's program. We are talking about some numbers. We've come a long way talking about employment numbers in the state, how we need to attract and retain people. We talked about the role that the universities play and perhaps how they could play even bigger role, echoing off of what we've done from an agricultural perspective and research. We talked about how things have changed, but it's not bleak. We're still in a very good position, which you recognize despite what you're hearing across the country about North Dakota, which is the salacious news about how we're falling apart and everybody's leaving and there's, campers on the street corners that have been abandoned. Things are pretty good here.
They are. There's still lots of job growth. That was really the most pleasant thing to see was unemployment rates while they've gone up a little bit in the far western parts of the state, they've increased from 1% to 2% or 2% to 3%. This is not a tsunami of an army of unemployed. This is going from spectacularly low to just a little less spectacularly low.
I like
Not
that.
a problem.
So one of the other things that you shared during the presentation last night is some insight on imports and exports and that role when it comes to the national recovery. When it comes to imports and exports, what are you seeing? Are we importing less, exporting less? Where do we position ourselves and where do we need to be to really move the ball forward when it comes to improving on a national scale?
You're looking probably at the real sore point of the economy going forward, Dot. You've really zeroed in on the worst spot and twisted the knife here a little bit. So what we've got now is a situation where exports that were doing pretty well for a good long time have now really fallen off the wagon. And it's not because our companies aren't doing well. It's because the problems they face in the global economy are tough. One, the dollar strengthened, so the cost of American goods in foreign currencies has gone up, making it harder for them to export. And two, The globe is cooling. Economically speaking, Japan is not doing well. They've been in a funk. Europe has performed very poorly since the recession and got much better. And more importantly, of late, the emerging markets, Russia, Brazil, China, South Africa, Turkey, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, these are countries that collectively have 2 billion, 2.5 billion people, have really been doing poorly and are not likely to do well going forward. So their demand for our products is also weakening because of their just weak economies, and our strong dollar is a lot to overcome. Now, conversely, the strong dollar has made imports cheap. So now we're buying Lamborghinis and buying Ferraris and buying Birkin bags that cost $5,000 and so on and so forth, and fancy shoes from Italy and so on, Ferragamo shoes. We're not buying American stuff. So imports are going up, exports are going down, and our trade deficit is worsening. And this is going to be a drag on the economy, I would think, for the next several years as the high dollar's impact slowly gets felt through the supply chain and so on and so forth. It's not dollar goes up, exports go down quickly and we're dealt. No, it takes a couple of years to fully feel the effect.
Exacerbating, but having the opportunity to help to support improvement in the imports and exports are some legislative initiatives that are taking place right now. And you referenced one of those in your blog this morning,
right.
As well as the role that we're playing, not only from a trade agreement perspective, but looking at oil exports in particular.
That's big.
You talked about how that could be a game changer for North Dakota and really expedite our transition back to the top. I mean, I think we're still at the top right now, but we are miles above the rest.
At the top in North Dakota.
So can you talk about, why this is important,
Sure.
why we need to pay attention to these national movements and the flow of goods across the globe?
The world's becoming more, and these are all cliches, but we're all one family, we're one village. The interconnections are much bigger than they were 5 or 10 years ago. Supply chains are all interconnected. There's more ships around that can move oil around and so on. So getting back to your oil point, I think getting rid of this export ban on oil is critically important for you. It's important for Texas, all the oil producing states. The problem is the price of WTI, the benchmark American crude, is about $5 or $6 less than the benchmark international crude, Brent, North Sea. That's us. That's Norway and British oil from the North Sea. That $5 or $6 gap shouldn't exist, and it only exists because we can't export oil as freely as we'd like to. If we could get that gap to go away, it would make the wellhead price here in North Dakota, $4 or $5 higher, which would make more deposits, more recoverable oil in the ground, which would spur more construction, piping and drilling and exploration and production activity. You need to get this. We need to get this passed. It's good for America to get this passed. It's particularly good for North Dakota. Push on your local representatives and push on your 2 senators to get them to pass this.
And you might have the opportunity to do a little pushing.
I hope
this
to.
morning.
I hope
so.
to.
You want to share with listeners where you're headed after this?
I will be speaking at the North Dakota Bankers Association in downtown Bismarck, and I will talk briefly about the importance of repealing the export ban on oil. More importantly, it hurts North Dakota more than other states because your oil is really high quality oil, and the refineries in America were not designed to distill light, sweet oil. They're designed more for heavy, sour oil. And therefore, we don't have the and that's why the wellhead price here is lower than it should be. And if we could just export it to another country and we import their heavy sour oil, we'd both be better off.
Absolutely. And it's looking at, like you said, what you're good with and good at and running with it.
That's right.
Take advantages of your advantages. And if that's, one way to communicate that with the public, I think it's very clear, is that we have those capabilities for importing and then distilling the heavier oil, and we can export and take advantage of the existing infrastructure
and build on the infrastructure. Get more pipelines if you can. XL would be nice, but that may not be happening for a while at least. But take the natural advantages and comparative advantages you have and push them hard. You can try some new stuff too. It's always good to diversify, but don't just diversify.
So let's talk a little bit before we say goodbye, because our hour is coming to a close.
Unfortunately.
I know, it's so sad. I got to drive you back.
Not
back. All the way home.
Bring me back in a few months. You can do it virtually, right?
Absolutely. Let's talk about home purchasing. So one thing that we get toyed with quite often is the fact that interest rates may rise. Of course, they never do. And I think that's kind of like crying wolf. And it is causing people to slow their decision-making processes. Because why not wait for the prices to drop? Because I'm not worried about my financing charges increasing. What do you anticipate happening this year with interest rates? Are they going to go up?
There's I would say a 50-50 chance that the Federal Reserve raises rates at their December meeting. They have a meeting shortly. They have a meeting and then they have one end of the year. I think that it's 50-50. It's a very close call. The economy slowly improves. Unemployment is now achingly low at 5.1 nationally. To have 5.1% unemployment and essentially zero interest rates is unheard of. So the point is monetary policy can take 12 months to 18 months to have its full effect. So if you don't start raising rates soon, we're going to have some wild, weird stuff going on in mid-2017, which is kind of a long way to think about, but you got to think that far down. So as short-term rates rise, the likelihood is that long-term rates will also start to rise. They won't rise as fast as short-term rates because inflation expectations down the road are virtually non-existent. But nonetheless, if short-term rates offer, they bump up by half a point, by 50 basis points or 0.5%, long-term rates will rise by 10, 20, or 30 points, some sympathetic increase as well. So rates are probably not going to get lower. If they get lower, it means the economy is getting worse. That's not a good thing. I think all rates will start to go up, not a lot and not quickly, but they will go up.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for spending your time with us this morning. I would like to again encourage listeners to hop onto your blog, text you to receive those 70 words or less. I promise you will impress your friends, your family, and neighbors. You've listened to Super Talk 1270's Free for All Friday with the Bismarck Mandan Home Builders Association. Please join us again next time.
Thanks for joining us for Free for All Friday on Super Talk 1270, keeping you involved and informed on issues that impact our area. To find more local talk at 11 o'clock, keep your radios right here on Super Talk 1270.